Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Sharpen Your Axe. Today, Mike and I are going to talk about the importance of attitude with action, how to stay calm and deal with failure. Enjoy. You talked a lot about keeping a positive perspective. Things that your dad and Dick Freeman taught you about, just the power of a positive attitude. I've heard you say all the time, attitude is everything.
You know, I always believed that, and I still believe it, but then one of the things I picked up from John Maxwell, he modified that phrase a little bit, and when I heard him give his take on that, it made total sense to me. He says attitude with action is everything. And the example he gave to illustrate that was there are a lot of people who will come to work every day, and boy, they've got a great attitude. They love everybody, and they'll tell everybody what a great company it is that they're working for, but they're not doing their job well. They just aren't focused on their job, but boy, they got a great attitude. Or somebody that maybe goes to church every Sunday, and then during the week they don't live and practice what they've learned on Sunday morning. So attitude with action is everything.
Well, I can be so bold as to say attitude with the right action.
Yeah, I agree.
Is everything. How have you been able over the course of your life? Because I've observed, working with you now for about 15 years, the ups and downs of business. And we've been in some difficult moments over the course of the last decade and a half where business just seemed to be heading in a direction that we didn't like. We were dealing with issues we didn't want to be dealing with. And my experience with you is you've been calming and positive with clarity of thought about some options on how to deal with those situations. Failure is a very real thing in life. Difficult times is a very real occurrence in everybody's life. Yours, mine, everybody's. How are some of the ways that your mentors in your life have allowed you to deal with failures or difficult moments? Can you have an example or two of that?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I was taught, probably more through observing certain individuals do this than any one person actually saying it to me. When you're calm in the midst of a storm, that doesn't mean that you don't have fear, you don't have anxiety or stress, that you don't have worry. It just means that you realize in order to get through that storm, you've got to calm yourself so that you can think. A great piece of advice that Dick Freeman gave me many, many years ago, and it really helped me. He said, there are going to be times in business negotiations when you're dealing with issues with employees and whatnot, that you have to take a little bit more of a firm stance, or you have to take a principled stance. And when you're dealing with something like that, say an angry customer, where their level of anxiety or anger is rising, he said, Mike, your normal tendency is for your voice to increase in loudness and to increase the speed at which you're talking. And he said, if you'll think about that, the louder you talk and the faster you talk, the less time you have to really think about what you're saying. And he said, so when you begin to get in a situation like that where you feel that tension rising inside of you, and it's a physical feeling that we all feel from time to time, he said you've got to really control yourself, and one way to do that is to be aware of what you're feeling, and with great intention slow down the pace of your conversation and lower your tone. And by doing that, you're gaining control of your own emotions. Therefore, you're going to have a much better opportunity to speak rationally, to think clearly, and to lower the tension level, even with the person or the situation that you're dealing with. So slow down the pace of your tone, of your speech, and lower your tone. And oftentimes you'll gain better control.
You know, one of the things that I was taught years ago was to do that, and then to try to listen to yourself as you're speaking and observe in real time how you're communicating.
Yeah.
And it's an odd thing to do, but it seems to be a pretty effective way to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable to just that.
Yeah.
So let's stay on this for just a minute, because I want to talk about challenges and failures, right? We're in a time in our business where a lot of companies have really struggled over the last several months to make money, where a lot of salespeople are going through a season of time that many people in our industry haven't been in yet. I mean, as we've talked about, we've been through 2.5 decades of falling rates, and they're going up now. And so the people who were focused on purchase business are now having to deal with all of the other salespeople in the industry that used to be distracted by refis that are now also fighting for that same purchase business.
Yeah.
And the people that weren't focused on developing purchase business now have to figure out how. And so it's more difficult for everybody. And we're going into a season of winter where home values are still solid, but competition for every property out there seems to be very, very tough. There's margin compression, rates are increasing, and a lot of people are scared.
Yeah.
The good news is it's a season, although this may be a protracted season. How have you been able to deal with these types of situations in the past?
Well, again, hopefully one of the benefits of getting into the last third of your life is you've lived through the ups and downs of life. Business is not a lot different than other areas of your life. You're going to have rainy days and you're going to have sunny days. My dad used to say that to me. He'd say, son, if it's raining outside right now, that increases the odds it'll be sunny tomorrow. If it's sunny outside right now, that increases the odds that it may rain tomorrow. So he taught me how to have a fairly even keel outlook on life. But generally speaking, when you go into a difficult season, if you can always remember, this too shall pass. Sometimes it passes more quickly than at other times. And boy, when difficult things come on and they last for a long time, it makes life very hard. But ultimately, almost always things like that pass. And so if you can have a long view instead of a myopic today view only, I think that can help you make better decisions. And then also listening to other people who walk down the road you're walking down right now. I remember so well in the mid and late 80s when the Tax Reform Act of 1986 was signed into law by President Ronald Reagan. My good friend Dave Ramsey went bankrupt during that era. My dear mentor, Dick Freeman, and his son, Chriswell Freeman, both went bankrupt during that period, and so many other friends of mine and business associates. That was a very, very, very difficult time. I didn't file bankruptcy, but I came so close to it, and we lost so much, and we pretty well had to start over. And it was during that time that I went through a season of what I later realized was depression. I experienced real depression, and it was almost impossible, if not impossible, for me to pull myself out of that. But I had some dear friends. My father also became really my pastor during that time, and he really didn't do a lot other than he just loved me. He and Mom loved me, and a lot of other friends. I won't start trying to name them now because I'll leave somebody out. My great friend Mike Ballard, I talk about him in my book. There were friends who basically just said, this will pass. You didn't lose all your common sense. You didn't lose all your training and your education and your learning just because of this financial reversal. This will pass. Hang in there. And so having great friends, having good family relationships, and being willing to listen to others who've walked down the road you're presently walking down, whatever that is, it'll pass. You'll get through it. It doesn't seem like it at the moment, but it will pass.